I'm Judith Cederblum. I was in Turkey in 1965 to 67, and I had the good fortune of being in Istanbul for 4 to 6 months, and then Ankara after that. I think the thing that I didn't know when I went to Turkey was how much it was going to influence the rest of my life, unintended consequences of volunteering. I think it actually helped make me a citizen of the world, and to realize that America, wonderful as it is just part of a whole huge universe of interesting people, interesting languages, a great deal of art and literature and history, and it made me, I think, a better American citizen to have been a guest of the Turks. And I've become a friend of the Turks, actually, and I'm still translating. I just got asked to participate in a translation project for a women's museum that's being founded in Istanbul. And I'm just so happy to still be in the world of the Turks. And I'm grateful to them for letting me live there. And take care to come back and tell people about it here.
No.
I've only been back once. I've been back in '71, and I've never seen the new bridges across the Bosphorus. There's so much I haven't seen. And I realized when I started doing this volunteer translation project that the Turkish that I learned in the mid-60s was only about 40 years out from the end of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, and the Turkish that is spoken now is 40 or 50 years after that. So doing the translation, I realized how much Turkish has changed as a language just in really a very short period of time for languages to be changing. It's astonishing, and it's really interesting to be part of that. That actually was when I went back to visit Turkey, the first and last time I've been there, and 10 of my students took me out to dinner and made me speak Turkish with them because they said, "Ms. Cederblum, now you are to practice your Turkish. You made us practice our English. It's your turn." So that was really fabulous. It was a wonderful experience.
I'm Diana Pierce. I served in Turkey in 1965 to 67, and I served in a small village in the community development program outside of Van, eastern Turkey, almost to the Iranian border.
Now, how did you happen to decide to go back after all those years?
Well, after our kids were grown, we went back we took Fulbrights. We got one Fulbrights in Central Asia, which is also Turkic in culture and language and religion. And so we went through Istanbul on the way, and so we decided one of those times that we would spend some time and go back to the village before it was too late. Most of the women that I had known in the 60s had died, but many of the men had not. And their children and grandchildren knew about us, and there were stories of us. And we brought some old pictures, and they had some old pictures. We put some on a disc, and they took the disc and took it to a computer and printed it out before we left that day. So it was quite an interesting visit and how much it changed. So there was a computer in the bedroom where we had built our fires. We used tizak, which is sheep dung. That's how we heated in the winter, and it was cold in the winter. The ice would freeze in the buckets and that sort of thing. So there was no running water, no electricity, no heat when we lived there, but now they have computers. So it's changed a lot. I think it was a very interesting experience to have, in my early 20s, to be treated totally equally. My husband and I got exactly the same salary. In the 60s, that was unusual. There were very few places where that was true in the United States or anywhere. And second, that sort of sense that you could make things happen if you wanted to start a program or do anything. Like I decided to teach literacy. I got a sewing machine. I was teaching, sewing using a machine, that kind of thing. And you come back, and so you see a problem here, you say, okay, I will do something about it. Whereas if you don't have that experience early on, it takes a lot longer before you get to that position where you'll just start something. So we've come back here and started centers and projects and coalitions and that sort of thing that maybe I wouldn't have done if I hadn't had that Peace Corps experience. That sort of sense of being able to do those things myself. So. The things that happened didn't help very much. Happened just before we ended up being forced to leave the village, was that we got a pup. We didn't know we were going to be leaving, so the dog next door, the sheepdog, who helped herd sheep and guard the sheep, had puppies, and so we were given one of the puppies, and we were excited about that. And then the puppy bit us and started to act, sick. We didn't know what was wrong, and then we found out that the mother dog had gotten sick, and they had realized she had rabies, so they had shot her, but hadn't told us. And so we were trying to nurse this dog, and my husband got a little nip from the dog, etc. So we called up our Peace Corps doctors, and they said, come in immediately. You need to get rabies shots, and George needed a special one in case he'd been exposed more than I had. And they were going to send out public health people to the village, which of course did not help much for the village. We were lucky and we got the shots that don't have as much impact, but we ended up spending 2 weeks in Ankara, which we had not planned on. Shots in this, they drew a grid on our stomachs and gave us a shot, every day. But they wanted to test to make sure that the dog did in fact have rabies. So although we had buried the dog, the puppy had died, they asked us to bring the dog's head in. So we went out. Fortunately, it was winter. It was frozen. Cut off the dog's head, wrapped it in plastic, put it in a basket, and took it with us. Nobody in the plane knew that we were carrying a dog's head with us all the way to Ankara. And they tested it and did have rabies. So, but we've been fine ever since.
So you had 2 weeks of shots?
Yeah.
One a day in the stomach?
Yeah. And the Peace Corps doctor, of course, had no experience giving shots because in the United States, nurses give shots, right? So the doctor starts giving us shots and said, I've never given shots before. So he wasn't really good at it either. So that was a little painful, but we survived.